Hello, I'm Jess Gartner. These are my philosophical musings about the concept of safety through the lens of Airbnb hosting. I became an Airbnb host about 2 years ago, which means that I rent rooms in my home to complete strangers every night. At first, my friends and family were pretty sure this was a good recipe for my untimely death and destruction. But it turns out that people are actually way more afraid of coming to my neighborhood in Baltimore than I have ever been of them. I welcome 200 guests to my house from all over the world of every race, age, and profession imaginable, and they all have the exact same question. Is it safe? And every time that I have to answer this question in defense of my home and my city, I'm like, what do you expect me to say here? What do you really mean when you ask if my home is safe? So I thought about a time that I felt really unsafe when I was traveling. When I was backpacking Central America, I arrived in El Salvador in the middle of the night and was pushed into a very dark car that sped off. And I thought, well, this is how human trafficking begins. So I started plotting my MacGyver-like escape and thought I might fare better in the jungle. And when the car stopped, I hear people frantically yelling in Spanish, which I don't really speak. It turned out they were trying to feed me, not kidnap me. We spent the rest of the night eating pupusas and watching Grey's Anatomy in Spanish, so I felt pretty silly and ridiculous. My theory is that when people ask about their safety, they're not so much concerned about their physical protection as they are their level of comfort. Will I be around people who look and sound like me, or am I gonna have to face people of a different race who speak a different language? My house is literally rated on its safety, and people say things in reviews like, it's a little sketchy and it's gentrifying. Gentrifying, not gentrified, which is kind of like code for warning. There are still some black people living here, and you might encounter them. And most people are pretty good sports. They make friends with my neighbors, they go to the local coffee shop, they try the local restaurants, and they say my house is nice. But some people have decided they just can't stay. One night I'm checking a lovely Spanish couple in when my other guests for the night call. Jessica, he said, we have a problem. What's wrong? Are you lost? No, we're outside. My wife is afraid to get out of the car. So I run downstairs, where I am greeted by a woman in the passenger seat wearing a mink shawl and movie star sunglasses. There is a man on the corner, she says. We can't stay here. Oh, that's my neighbor Robert. He sells African art and plays jazz music. I noticed that she wasn't really bothered by the white man pushing his baby in the stroller on the other side of the street. And the tough thing about these encounters is that I have to confront my own biases too, because my defense is usually, well, I live here, as if some random white girl's willingness to live there should make you feel comfortable about being there too. And to be honest, it usually does, but I hate that that's my response to people. So is it safe? Later that week, the man emailed me and said, really sorry it didn't work out. 30 years ago, we would date and go to that neighborhood. My wife was a different woman then. Don't you want to know what happened? Because I kind of do. Another woman had stayed with me for over a month when her father came to visit for lunch and demanded that she vacate by the end of the week. He said he really wanted to meet me to tell me how brave I was. And I was like, brave for what? These are my neighbors. I love my neighbors. They're really awesome. You don't know them and you're uncomfortable. My neighbors help me carry my groceries. They help me shovel my snow. They feed my cat while I'm away. And we throw really amazing parties. Come to Suibo Fest. But is it safe? And the thing is, it kind of depends on what your personal definition of safety is. Because one, I don't know what you mean by safe. And two, we're really safe until we're not, just like we're healthy until we're sick. And it's a pretty big burden because when you're asking me if you're safe, what you're really asking me to do is magically interpret what your personal definition of safety is and then predict the future, which is a pretty tall order for an amateur bed and breakfast if you ask me. But the good news is, you have a choice on how you view and interpret the world. The world is a pretty dangerous place these days, and I'm sorry to tell you that random acts of violence may befall you and there's relatively little that you can do about it. But you do have control over how you interact with the world. One woman told me she was afraid to get out of her car. Well, I can see how that would happen if you treat my neighbors like they just walked off the set of The Wire. But the same thing is that the exact same people that scare her are out there planting trees and flowers with me every spring. So which world do you want to live in? Because you get to decide. Do you want to live in a world where everybody that doesn't look like you is a potential thief or criminal? Because I'd rather live in a world where we plant flowers together every spring. Which Baltimore do you live in?